Good day, dear colleagues. I am really glad to welcome you to our podcast today, which is, due to some technical reasons, is pre-recorded. But next time we promise you that we're going to be welcoming you online and you will have a chance to actually ask us your questions and to share your stories live. Our guests today are Marina Evstratova, the head of TTC Academy, and Maria Rakultseva, a TTC methodologist. My name is Valentina, and I'm going to be your host today. The podcast is expected to be pretty intense since we're going to talk about lesson intensity. And let me clear that up for you. By that, we mean the frequency of classes per week. It's pretty common to think for students actually, as well as for teachers, that the more frequent the classes are, the better. But is that really so? Well, dear experts, I hope you will help us figure it out today. Does the more the better rule actually work here? Marina, could you help us out?
Well, that depends on what we mean by more and better. It always depends on that. I would say that the balance is everything that you would need here, and the definition of the balance is different for every single person. But here I would, I don't know, I would create some frames probably. Maybe in most cases, studying every single day, several hours a day would really be too much, and the more the better would not work here, just because you would exhaust yourself pretty quickly, and that would this intensity would be suitable only for very intensive courses where you would need to, I don't know, reach your goals or prepare for exams in a week or two. But on the other hand, the opposite would also be not okay for studying languages, particularly because, well, a lot of students actually share this pattern of studying as a hobby, and as every hobby that we usually have, we tend to exercise this hobby once a week, maybe during weekends or somewhere in the middle of the week when we have time. But again, this intensity that is similar to exercising hobbies would not be enough for seeing any kind of progress. So I would say that the optimal intensity for studying languages would be somewhere between 2 and 4 lessons a week, well, preferably 3, somewhere in the middle. And of course, that would depend on some individual features of every single student.
Well, all right. Thank you. Then I guess another saying might also be true here. Less is more, meaning fewer classes, but higher quality ones. Maria, can you help us out here?
Yeah, so unfortunately, no. So even with the brilliant and most efficient classes once a week, the effectiveness of the process drops dramatically. And here I will mention 2 notions. So the hour efficiency and the forgetting curve. So last spring, our Teachers Training Center cooperated with one university to conduct a research on the influence of frequency of classes on the hour efficiency. So it turned out that if a student has classes 4 times a week instead of 1, the hour efficiency increases not by 4, but by 7. By like 7 times. That's incredible. And you know, it's like sales or marketing, so 4 lessons with the efficiency increased by 7. So like this. And this happens just because we have a tendency to forget, which is okay for our brain, not to remember every minute of our life. And according to the Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting, we forget up to 60% of all information within the first hour after getting it. And within the next 10 hours, we remember only about 35%, so of something that we have learned. And so it is obvious that to remember something better, we need to revise it. And if the break between the lessons is like 6 or 7 days, so you can imagine so that our student will basically have to learn everything from the scratch. something like this. And here I will probably give you an example. So once I had a new student who told me that she was absolutely bad at English, so she can't memorize all this like grammar, vocabulary, and so on. And so from the very first meeting, we agreed on having lessons 3 times a week. And for some reason, troubles with her memory disappeared, and we boosted her progress. She had some great results, and after some period of time, she even said that English now is her habit, so she can't imagine studying or reading or listening something, not reading, yes, not studying something every other day. So it was like a great win, I would say.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that. So it's often not the problem with bad memory that actually so many people tend to blame, but just not enough frequency. Yeah, not enough
Right.
frequent lessons. Wow, okay. Well, and you mentioned a research that actually proved that the hour efficiency increases by 7 times. Did those calculations include students' out of class work as well?
Well, I can comment here. Well, we do know several research projects that proved that there is a specific number of hours that you would need to study, but in all of those calculations, we both include and exclude those self-studying hours, just because we will never be sure how effective those hours are. And the effectiveness of those hours depends greatly on the development of metacognitive skills and metacognitive strategies that our students have. Not all our students are able of assessing the effectiveness of what they do by themselves. And there are lots of students who would be, I don't know, reading the dictionary and trying to put a sticker on every single object that they see around them, which is, again, a study strategy that some people tend to follow. But not all of them will know why exactly this is not the case, and this is not the exercise that is going to help you study the language. So, of course, we as teachers can show our students several strategies and several exercises. We can I don't know, we can give them some homework that would be corresponding to the lesson material that we've studied with them during our contact hours. But again, it's impossible to teach a student in one attempt to develop all their metacognitive strategies in just several exercises, several lessons, and that would require lots and lots of practice and lots of training. We as teachers can organize and self-direct our learning just because we've studied how to teach and we've taught for many, many years, and it's our implicit knowledge that we've inherited after all those years of studying, and we do know how to organize our work, but our students don't. And I would say this is a cognitive bias if we suggest that our students would follow our patterns if we don't explain those patterns and if we don't teach them explicitly. So going back to the question about calculations, yes and no. In all of those calculations, we suggest that our students would need to do additional work outside our classroom, homework, I don't know, additional practice, watching TV series, reading something, anything that would require practicing the language, but we cannot calculate those hours because we don't know how many hours our student would need to practice to develop the language in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. And well, let's be honest, we're all human and we don't even know if there are going to be any hours in between lessons. And well, here, our dear viewers, please comment on the video or on the digest when you get the podcast digest, and tell us if you have, or maybe you have had, any wonder students like those who can be just perfectly independent and really self-organized in between the lessons. And we would also really appreciate it if you share if you contributed to that. Like, how do you help your students be so independent? Well, when we're talking about increasing lesson frequency, many teachers get really concerned that that might be just too much for their students. Is it possible to find that, perfect balance between where the efficiency will grow together with the number of lessons and your student will not get tired, overwhelmed, bored, maybe, or
Yeah,
anything
here
like
I
that?
will probably comment. So according to the same research I mentioned before, so the most tangible difference is found between 1 lesson a week and 4 lessons a week. So remember, by 7 times. 3 lessons a week cause 2 times better efficiency compared to 2 lessons. And there is not much difference between 3 and 4 lessons a week. So we can say that probably 3 lessons a week is the perfect choice for us as teachers and for our students. 2 lessons is not bad either, but the effect and maybe the progress will be a little bit lower, slower, and so on. 4 lessons is also good, and I think that probably your students can make it and take 4 lessons and will boost their progress and so on. So here it is.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. No one's gonna think that that's too much, I hope. Well, and here is our next question then. If we manage to pick that perfect lesson frequency and, well, convince our student that 3 or 4 lessons are just ideal, does it all depend on the frequency only? Will that mean that we've solved our problem?
No. Well, unfortunately not. Apart from the intensity and of course the quality of teaching and the quality of materials, which goes without saying, the main factors that would also influence the effectiveness of learning is the student's age, unfortunately. However, age shaming that sounds, and the pile of factors that we can call motivation. That would also include the attitude towards the language, the attitude towards the teacher, the need, the objective need of studying, I don't know, the student's subjective goals, the student's interests, I don't know, well, basically everything that attracts the student's attention in the studying process, that would also bear great influence here. But as for the age that I mentioned, the rule here, unfortunately, is as follows. The older the student is, the more hours the student would need to study to reach the same results in comparison with, I don't know, a young adult or someone in their 20s or 30s. So the most drastic drops in effectiveness can be observed when the student is approximately 40, 45 and 50, 55. So whenever you happen to have a student who can be called in this way a senior learner, just because there are some natural processes happening in our body that affect the way our cognition works in the context of studying the language, you would need to first increase the intensity. And then you would also need to make sure that you have more revision activities each lesson, just to make sure that this bond between the previous knowledge and the new knowledge is formed effectively, so that the student will remember everything that you would teach them during this lesson. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Well, does it then mean that the length of the process itself is more important than the frequency of lessons?
Well, that depends. If the frequency, for example, of course, some rough calculations cannot be applied here, but just to give an example, if the student who can be called a senior learner in this case studies 1 lesson a week, there will be absolutely no progress. And maybe in this way they could study just for fun, not to forget the language, although they will forget the language sooner or later, and the language skill will deteriorate in this way. But again, if you want to keep the length approximately the same, so if you want to reach the goal in half a year and I don't know, pass an exam, move somewhere and do whatever you want in half a year, you would need to increase the intensity. If you are okay with this half a year extending to several more months, then you could keep the intensity that you have now. So you would need to sacrifice either the time that you need to invest or the time that you will get the results after studying.
All right, thank you, Marie. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, here, well, talking about the frequency and length of studying in general. So it seems to be, well, probably impossible to pick just one. So they go hand in hand, and the individual peculiarities, or like age, memory, and so on, also play a big role. So they will define probably those. We'll define how long it will take to come, yes, to reach our set goal with our student. And the frequency mustn't be cut for sure. So due to the forgetting curve, yeah, we've talked about. So like Marina said, so it can be longer to get to the set goal. And also we can probably change something in our course, some changes like revision, more practice, and so on in the course materials. So probably like this.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and well, Maria, I also know that you do teach children, younger learners at least. Is it much different with them when we talk about that lesson frequency and that age peculiarities? Does that influence the length and the progress, the effectiveness, and so on?
Well, I think, it is also true for, well, teaching young kids, young learners and so on. Here I will probably mention that young learners are kind of more flexible probably in their studying process because it is their main, I wouldn't say role, but their main activity, their main profession for this period of time. So they are in this constant studying, constant thinking about something, memorizing and so on. So it is very, I wouldn't say very easy, but easier for them to gain some information, to have some more practice and so on. So just because it is their main occupation. So the higher intensity we have with young learners, the bigger progress we have, and you can compare like having bigger progress with kids who are already, I don't know, in this studying process and so on. So they have bigger progress than adults probably. So you can imagine that having some intensive classes with our kids will be a really great idea if we want to have to reach some great results. So like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. So it still does matter. All right. Well, one additional question to Marina then, since frequency does matter for all the learners, younger ones, older ones, does it really depend on the level of the learner then? Does it mean that the higher level students might just have one class a week?
That's such a debatable question. I would begin with beginners, surprisingly. For beginners, if you're just starting to learn the language, having only one lesson a week would not give you any results whatsoever. And for beginners, the frequency, the recommended frequency or intensity, as we call it, would be much higher. So I would say that the optimal frequency for beginners would be 4 hours a week. But the higher the level is, of course, the more independent the student becomes and the more practice outside the class the student can do in this way. But again, going down to one lesson a week is still not recommended because higher levels with only one lesson a week can only keep their level where it is, but if they want to improve themselves, it would probably be impossible in this way. Of course, there are some anomalies where students can practice by themselves and they only need some speaking practice with their teacher once a week and they do everything by themselves outside the class, but this is not a rule, this is more of an exception. So yes, in short, for beginners and for lower levels in general, higher frequency would be recommended, and it could lower if the student is of a higher level, but 1 lesson a week is still not recommended.
All right, well, I guess still due to that forgetting curve, right, that Maria mentioned, because they will be forgetting. All right, thank you. Well, and finally, as you're both teachers and you're both experts, would you share some special stories related, to lesson frequency or maybe students' autonomy from your own experience with our viewers?
Well, probably I can start. So I love to tell the story. I think it's kind of general, not like specifically the case, but still, sometimes I meet people, not even sometimes, maybe frequently, I meet people who tell me that they have studied English at school like for 10 years, they have been studying English at university like for 5 years, and then they come to you and it turns out that their level is like A1, like lower elementary or something, and you're like 15 years of studying the language, and so where was it? So where were those years, and where is your like high level and so on, and then yeah, so we try to create the track to set the goal and so on, and with the like intensive lesson like of in a really short period of time, like in a couple of months or in just in half a year, we can reach the results that the student well didn't mention to do like for the last 15 years, I would say, like that.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Because well, it's not exactly about time as is. That's what you do with your time. Okay. Marina?
I would add to that just some thought flipped into my mind right now. I would say that higher intensity without the plan would probably burn your student out, but not get them to whatever results they want, depending on what they mean by results. I just remember having several students of mine who liked actually studying every day, very early in the morning, very strange people, as I thought. Yeah, great students, but again, it always surprised me why exactly they wanted to study every single day. And I would say that what helped me and what helped them to keep the pace is the plan that we tried to follow. The plan was the course, of course, that corresponded to their goals. They had very different goals. One wanted to get into the medical university, and one wanted to, again, university, but he was studying arts, music to be precise. So we were following very different courses, and we were trying to reach very different goals with very high intensity. But again, what we did back then was trying to keep the structure of our studies. So if you just have lots of lessons spread along the week and you don't actually follow any specific plan, you choose some random topics that the student likes still, but you don't analyze the process and the progress that you've had with those students during those lessons, the higher intensity is not going to be kept for long. So probably that's the advice.
All right, yeah, thank you. I have a student like that, actually. He insists on studying every day, but he explains it by the fact that he's not really good with homework in general, and he is not doing, well, almost anything in between the classes, except for he listens something for fun and he watches TV series and stuff like that. But generally, it's better for him that we revise everything in the classroom. That's his reason, but yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure we can all learn from such real life examples and stories. Unfortunately, we have to be wrapping up for today. And let us just sum it all up now. How can we deal with the lesson frequency? Why do we have to do that? And whose responsibility that is?
The teachers. I will start from the very end. I think we forgot to mention that, well, if we imagine the student's journey map whenever they want to start studying with us, specifically at our school, we as teachers, I mean, we think that our students have this decision of how many hours a week they are ready to dedicate to studying. And we also think that they have a recommendation from a trial lesson methodologist. And, and when we get a student with only one lesson a week, we tend to think that this is their informed decision, which is not true. So there are many students who do not really know why exactly studying 4 lessons a week is better than studying 1 lesson a week. And for example, the information that Maria gave us today is not even known to lots of teachers. So explaining all that from the academic standpoint, not trying to sell many lessons a week, because again, this is what exactly the teacher might think that we would be advising to do. But this is not the case here. We're following the academic results, and we want our teachers to know that there are scientific reasons why exactly studying more frequently is going to be much more beneficial for our students. And trying to explain all that to our student is going to be the teacher's responsibility, because the teacher here is the only resource that the student has in this way. I mean, in the context of this information.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. And then are there any tools for teachers or students, maybe any sources that our viewers might be able to use afterwards to make more informed decisions? Yay!
For sure.
Go ahead, tell us about it.
We even have lesson materials that are focused on the effectiveness of frequency. I think we have them for the levels elementary and intermediate. Vale, correct me if I'm wrong. I think elementary and intermediate. Yeah, they can be found in the section media, news, elementary or intermediate, and the lesson is called "Are You an Effective Learner?" And we've developed this lesson to give our teachers a tool of explaining and showing all the information that we've just discussed, basically from the academic standpoint to their students. So yeah, you can definitely use that. And right after the podcast, in the post that we're going to be posting our podcast in, we're going to share some useful links to the checklist that you can use to give your students some advice regarding if efficiency and intensity of your lessons.
All right, so the lesson that you mentioned, Are You an Effective Learner, is actually a lesson for the students to take together with the teachers. Yeah, okay. Well, dear teachers, or dear experts, our time is unfortunately up. In the post that Marina mentioned, you will be able actually to find all the necessary links, all the things that we've mentioned, including a link to our feedback form. And we will be really glad if you could fill it out, because your opinions are very important to us. You can even suggest some topics for the future podcasts or webinars that are really, really important for you. We'll consider them. Also, don't forget that you can always ask us questions via Teachers Care, or you can turn to our mentors if you need help. And again, we will provide you with all the necessary links in the post after. Dear experts, thank you so much for coming. Do you have anything else to add on our topic today? Thank you again, and see you next time. And have
Thank you for watching.
Great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.